So, Matthew chapter 7, well, what we have is chapter 7, the Sermon on the Mount. Do not judge. Easy to say, but it's really tough not to do. And I spent the whole time, last time, pretty much just saying there's all kinds of reasons not to judge. So don't. Well, Jesus, and I said this yesterday, while he has almost no transition from one subject to the other, it seems like he has no concern for that. I wish I knew more about the Hebraic rubric for teaching and the rabbinical methodology, but I don't. There's a real strong chance. It's just the way that Hebrew rabbis did it. But anyway, no transition. But he's pretty masterful at using word pictures to help bring some measure of clarity to what he talked about. And he does it here. So I'll just read it. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there's a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you'll see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Now, there's a wonderful little book by a guy named Elton Trueblood. Elton Trueblood, been dead for many years now, but he was a wonderful theologian, and this little book was entitled The Humor of Christ. Most people don't think of Jesus as humorous, except sometimes kids do. For instance, if you were to read these verses 3 through 5, to a kindergarten kid, he would laugh because it's laughable. And I think Jesus was trying to reinforce his point with a laughable story. Don't judge, because what the measure you use will be used to judge you. It doesn't often work out very well. And so he draws this kind of outrageous word picture about a guy who he's looking into the eye of another and saying, well, you have a speck in your eye. Let me take that speck out. Okay, that basically what he's saying, this guy's judgmental. But here's the problem. This guy's got a plank out of his eye. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? I think that's the point Jesus was making. If you want to take the speck out of somebody else's eye because you feel you're an eye speck inspector, then it's not going to work, because you've got a plank in your own eye. So, let's think of it in more, I would say, I don't know what to call it. For most modern people, we're going to go, okay, cut to the chase here. And so I will, if I can. What's the plank in the guy's eye represent? What does that represent? And what is the speck in the eye of the other guy? Because this is really just a metaphor. So metaphorically, what do these things represent? Well, the speck in the other guy's eye would metaphorically be a flaw or a problem or an issue that I deal with specks in my eye pretty routinely. I have allergies in my eyes. They crust up and they fuzz over, and it's a problem. And so is it wrong for me to notice somebody else has an issue? Well, I don't think that's wrong. But okay, you think about this in your own experience. When somebody points out an issue in your life, what do you feel? Well, it all depends on who the person is and how they do it. I have people in my, well, let me just first, I have to admit this up front. I really don't like having my specs pointed out. I don't like, first of all, I don't like that I've got them. And my pride is such that I don't like to be told about it. And that's because I struggle with emotional maturity in this area. But there are a few people that I permit to point out the specks in my eye. These are people who I'm convinced have my best interest at heart. They have goodwill toward me, and I know that. And as a result of that, I trust them. Have you ever had a speck pointed out by somebody that you don't respect or trust? Sure you have. Happens all the time. Not fun. It's hard for me to take them seriously. And there are people in my life who I don't want them pointing the speck out, okay? It's like, again, a lot of this is pride. My pride says, I don't need you to point my specks out. I can take care of it. And sometimes I'm absolutely wrong. I do need somebody to point the specks out. And there are even times in my immaturity when even then I have people who I will ask, what's the speck in my eye? What am I missing? Not many and not often. One of my objectives, one of my goals, I'm really not a goal because it doesn't have the parameters of a goal. It has, there's no time limit. There's no, so, but it is an objective. I want to get to the point where I have enough of the right kinds of people in my life that I can ask, okay, I don't see my own specs. Tell me where my specs are. One of the things that, what would I call this? This is a requirement of that person or these people is that I'm convinced they don't judge me because of my spec. This is not about them being judgmental toward me or thinking less of me because I have a spec. These are safe people, trustworthy, honorable, and honest. And some of these people I invite to be my spec inspectors. That's not the picture we get here from this story Jesus tells. We got a guy who, there's nothing in the story to indicate that Log Eye has ever been asked by Spec Eye to deal with a speck. It's like Log Eye, he's decided this is his role and function. And so he says, you have a speck in your eye? I can take that out. Let me take that speck out. But then this is where you got to think a little bit like a kid to get the what I think is the beauty of this little story. Can you imagine? You know, the guy's got a log in his eye, okay? And we're not, when Jesus uses the terminology he uses, he's not saying, well, he's got a little something in his own eye. No, it's a log. And he's wanting to get into this other guy's eye. Boom, he knocks the guy in the head with this. It's so ridiculous. It's hilarious. Except it's not hilarious. When I take on the role of being somebody else's judge, I got to be really careful. I have to be introspective. I have to be honest with myself, because I am not without speck, and there are times when I am not without log. Verse 5, Jesus, this is strong. You hypocrite. First, take the plank out of your own eye, and then you'll see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Is he saying, don't be, we don't need to be taking specks out of each other's eye? He's not saying that. What he's saying is, when you got this plank, this log in your own eye, there's no way you're going to be able to appropriately take the speck out of your brother's eye. But if you can get that out of your eye, then Jesus says, you can see clearly. And and then you can remove the speck from your brother's eye. This is not rocket science, but it is pardon me, a huge piece of human relations and a huge piece of living the Christ life, living according to God's design. So that, I don't think, you don't need any more exposition on that. It's pretty clear. But again, here Jesus goes, it almost feels like doesn't connect. What we have is verse 4. Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and then turn and tear you to pieces. Where did that come from? Well, I'm not sure that there's any need to try to connect the log eye and speck guy and dogs and pigs and pearls, and I just don't, I'm not sure that, I don't think we're talking about the same thing. I think what Jesus is saying has to do with discernment, discerning the value of what I have to say and the receptivity of the person to whom I'm saying it. In Jesus' life, he's the great example for the one who had the greatest treasure to offer. But there were dogs and pigs that they turned on him. And I think what he was saying, he's just saying reality. Hey, not everybody is going to get what you have to offer. So don't be surprised when they don't get it. And oh, by the way, there comes a time that once you've made the point, you've cast the pearls, you've held them out, they don't want them, and drop it. Ooh, that seems awful. Probably going to have to come back and do some more thinking out loud about this next time. But for now, I'm going to shut her down, and I'll see you next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.